This is a PC I built for a friend of mine, Meg. Currently, she has a somewhat dated system that's rocking a Ryzen 7 1700 and a GTX 1070. I actually built it for her over 4 years ago during the peak of the pandemic. It was her first gaming PC, so it's actually served her really well this entire time. She's been thoroughly enjoying it, but she is ready for an upgrade now, so of course I was down to help out. For her next system, she had a pretty modest budget, so the plan was to grab the best CPU and graphics card that she could afford and then fill in the rest with more affordable components, basically prioritizing performance over aesthetics and like extra bells and whistles and features. But it just so happened that NZXT reached out and wanted to sponsor a video where I showcase some of the new parts that they recently launched. So to me, this was the perfect opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. I get to build with some of these new parts from NZXT while also ensuring that they eventually end up in a good home afterwards where they will be utilized and loved for many years to come instead of just like sitting on the shelf in the back there. So yeah, that's a bit of the backstory of this video, and now let's go over what Meg is getting in her next PC. Starting off, we've got the processor. Meg is getting fast-tracked from a first-gen Ryzen chip to the AM5 platform with the Ryzen 5 7500F. This is an AliExpress special and one of the best bang-for-buck value CPUs under $200 at the moment. This is going to offer plenty of performance for the gaming and digital art that Meg does, and it'll be a while before she'll need to upgrade from this, and when she eventually does, being on the AM5 platform, there will be plenty of choices compatibility-wise if the AM4 platform is any indicator to go by. The 7500F is going into NZXT's N7B650E motherboard. While this isn't one of their newer products that was recently launched, NZXT sent this over with the rest of the parts to help out with the build, and it works out perfectly because we're going for that primarily white color scheme, and these are some of the best looking whiteboards on the market in my opinion. For cooling, we've got NZXT's Kraken 360 RGB. The 7500F is a 65 watt chip that doesn't need this much cooling. But don't worry, we'll still be taking advantage of it because going overkill in the cooling department just means the ability to run with lower fan speeds and noise. Pump as well. With this cooler, every single fan in the system and the pump can run at the lowest speeds and the CPU remains super cool. You'll see later on in the benchmarks that the CPU never even touches 50 degrees C while gaming, and even putting it under an all-core heavy workload, it only ever got as high as the mid-60s. Also, I just so happen to know that Meg really likes these LCD screens on these pump blocks. She's talked about it before when other members of our friend group started to get them in their PCs, so this will be a really nice surprise for her since she actually has no idea what parts are going into this build or what it's even gonna look like. I've kept it all under wraps in a secret, so she's only gonna find out once this video releases. For the graphics card, Meg's getting an RX 6700 XT Spectral Hellhound Edition. I bought this from Jawa.gg. Shout out to my buddies Shauner and Ryan, aka DeathTech, for giving me the heads up that this was being listed over there. I was able to get this for the market price of what a standard colored 6700 XT would cost, which I was pretty happy about because if you've ever hunted for white graphics cards before, you'll know that they can cost a lot more just for simply being white. While the 6700 XT is not the most powerful graphics card available today, it's one of the best value-oriented cards that keeps growing in popularity, and you'd be hard-pressed to find many people saying negative things about it. This is going to be a huge upgrade for Meg compared to her existing GTX 1070. Powering the system is NZXT's new C850 Gold power supply. This is their brand new offering for 2024 that has the same name as the past versions, but this is ATX 3.1 and PCIe 5.1 ready. If you're a tier list enjoyer and the first thing you do when you learn about a new power supply is run over to check out the PSU tier list, then you actually won't find this on there. Well, not this new one anyways. You'll find the 2020 and 2022 models, both of which are found in the A tier, lower priority, and speculative positions. This new 2024 C850 has not made its way to the tier list as of this video because, well, the list hasn't been updated for well over a year by this point. But don't worry, the world-renowned RSM, aka Editor-in-Chief and host of Hardware Busters, aka Chief Test Engineer of Cybernetics Labs, aka the Chad Power Supply Tester Extraordinaire, he has torn down, thoroughly tested, and reviewed the new C1200 and C1000 from the same product line as the C850 and gave them high marks and a badge of recommendation. Power supplies are kind of the unsung heroes when it comes to PC builds. Most people don't find them that exciting. They don't have glorified launch events like the next new shiny CPUs or GPUs. They usually aren't visible in a build compared to say a pretty case with colorful fans or a cooler with a fancy LCD screen. They're very much a behind the scenes component, but they are arguably the most important part in your PC. You literally cannot turn on your system without it or run certain components if you don't have one that can output enough power. This is an area that people sometimes skimp on because it doesn't directly impact like measurable performance like FPS. And I get it. I deal a lot with lower cost builds on this channel. Of course, you're not gonna wanna put like an A tier $100+ power supply into a build that only costs $300 to $400 total. That just doesn't make any sense. But as the build budget increases, if you can manage a high quality power supply, it just becomes one less thing that you have to worry about going wrong. Because of all your PC components, the power supply is the last thing you'd want to go wrong. Because at best, when it fails, it'll just die by itself. At worst, it'll take maybe one or two or all the components with it. And at worst, it can catch fire and burn your house down. So yeah, do a little bit of research when choosing a power supply. Don't just get the cheapest thing with the biggest number on the label. There's a reason why some of the cheaper power supplies only have 2 to 3 year warranties, and higher end ones like the C850 have 10-year. Warranties can reflect how much a company is willing to back their product, and longer ones usually mean that they're pretty confident in the quality. Now, the C850 does come with all white cables, which is a nice touch for people who don't want to bother with spending more on separate extensions and dealing with extra cable management, installation of cable combs, and things like that. But I personally really like the sleek cables with combs look and didn't mind the added effort to get that extra oomph factor for the aesthetics. For memory, we've got 32GB of Team Group DDR5 Delta RGB in white, rated at 6000 megatransfers per second CL30, which I would recommend as a pretty good sweet spot of performance and price. Meg's old system has 16 gigs of RAM, which some games are definitely starting to creep up on, so doubling that will ensure that she won't have to worry about it until her next platform or full system upgrade way down the line. Meg's getting 2TB of solid state storage via this SK Hynix Platinum P41. This is a high quality, blazing fast Gen 4 drive with speeds rated up to 7500 and 6500 megabytes per second, read and write respectively. This drive will populate one of the 3 M.2 slots on the motherboard and will be plenty of storage space for her to start with. And should she need more, she's still got 2 open slots for ease of installation before she has to start considering SATA. The case using this build is NZXT's new H7 Flow, which got a pretty big design change compared to previous year's H7 variants. One of the most notable changes is the removal of the power supply basement to open up the bottom for more cooling directed towards the graphics cards. This is a unique take on the recently popular trend of dual chambered style cases, but here the power supply is placed vertically in the opposite chamber, keeping the overall case down to a more reasonable width. The perforated front and top panels also have changed from the previous larger coarser holes to a much more refined mesh pattern, and this was to help with dust filtration. The new H7 has kept some of the best features from the previous versions unchanged though, such as the toolless designed panels for easy removal without having to deal with any screws, and plenty of straps, hooks, and routing channels in the back for ease of cable management. The new H7 comes in multiple variants. The base model, which comes with 3 standard F120Q fans in the front, and the one I'm using for this build is the RGB version that comes with NZXT's new F360 RGB core fans. Speaking of fans, we're going overboard with them in this build. The new H7 supports up to 10 fans. And Meg, you're getting 10 fans, 9 of which will be in the form of these new F360 RGB cores. This is NZXT's take on reducing the excessive amount of cables that came with the introduction of RGB fans many years ago, a problem that has plagued PC builders for the last X number of years until companies started to address it. What NZXT did was turn multiple fans into a single frame design. This essentially takes what would be 6 cables from 3 RGB fans and reduces it down to 1. So for these 9 RGB fans in this case, which would normally be 18 cables, it's reduced down to only 3. One of the concerns that has been brought up by the community regarding these single frame fans, because they are inseparable, is if one fan fails, you're out of luck and have to replace all 3. And NZXT's official staff have responded to this, saying that they've specifically extended their normal 2-year warranty on their typical fans to 5 years for these. So yeah, they're confident and stand behind the quality of these new fans. And with that, we finished the rundown of the parts. Now let's take a look at the complete build summary. Here's everything in this build. Some may look at this list and think the graphics card and maybe even the CPU are a bit underpowered compared to the rest of the components, and I agree with that, but that's what Meg's budget could afford for the parts that we had to buy, and I had a unique opportunity to upgrade other areas of her build with the help of NZXT, so I did. I'm not looking at this like, oh, the parts aren't balanced and there's way too much emphasis on aesthetics and not enough compared to the performance. I'm looking at this like, a homie is getting the hookup, this is way better than what she currently uses and has the foundations built in to become an even better PC when the time comes to replace some of the core components. Assembling this was a breeze due to how much open space the H7 has with the removal of the power supply basement, and of course also due to the F-Core 360 fans. This case has 10 fans, but it was like I was effectively installing 4. I'm gonna let this time-lapse run, and it will be followed by some B-roll Glamour shots of the completed build.
If you have low testosterone and you replace the testosterone, you will not have those risks.
So we can't have a PC build video without showing how it performs, right? Meg primarily games in 1440p, so that's what I tested everything at. I also wanted to show what a future upgrade path might look like for this build, and I think the very first thing that would likely be upgraded when the time comes would be the graphics card. So I also did some testing with this 7800 XT from my personal test bench. We've got a very capable, super affordable Ryzen 7500F that goes for around $130 that pairs very well with the graphics card nearly twice its price used in the 6700 XT. And the 7500F has such a wide range that it also has no problems, as you'll see in the benchmarks coming up, it has no problems handling something quadruple the price of it like this $500 7800 XT. So yeah, I'm gonna do less talking, let's just roll with the benchmarks. So those were the benchmarks. For now, Meg is going to be rocking the 6700 XT, which as we just saw is still a very capable card, especially considering how affordable it's become. Some of the newer titles are very hard to run, like Final Fantasy 16, and will give even the latest and greatest graphics cards a run for their money. But there are ways to alleviate it with things like FSR and frame generation. These can provide a decent uplift in performance. Some people absolutely hate enabling them and are native resolution purists. But when you're on a tight budget, sometimes you have to take advantage of these options on those select demanding games because they'll just give an overall more enjoyable playing experience than without them. As is, Meg will pretty much be able to play any game she wants to without any problems. You know, compared to what she's coming from, she's got a way more than capable CPU on a more modern platform, more RAM than she'll know what to do with, plenty of storage that will take her a while to fill up, and a night and day difference in this graphics card upgrade. She's also a pretty stylish person that appreciates a good looking PC, so I think she'll be more than happy with how this came out aesthetically as well. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. Let me know what you think how this build came out overall. And with regards to NZXT's new products that was showcased, what do you think of them? What do you like? What do you dislike? What can they improve on? And what other products would you like to see from them? Like for me, generally I don't build in cases as large as the H7. My heart has always been with the micro ATX form factor, and that's something that they haven't released in a while. It's been what, like 6 years since the original H400? NZXT has seen some drastic changes as a company since the H400 dropped. Their cases all have variants with, perforations or mesh for better airflow now. They have peripherals like mice, keyboards, microphones, capture cards, and even monitors. They sell pre-built gaming PCs. The NZXT of today is so different than the one of 6 short years ago, and they've taken risks and continue to take risks with some of their product launches. So I think it's time for them to take another risk and relaunch the next H400 with a modern design that reflects all their newest cases. I know people over at NZXT will be watching this since this video is sponsored and all, so please just think about it if you haven't already been doing so. But yeah, that's my biggest ask of them. Now you can let them know in the comments what you think of the products shown, as well as what you'd like to see in the future, and I will pass that along. Other than that, hope you all found this video either useful or entertaining in one way or another. I want to thank you all as always for watching and for continuing to support the channel. I want to again give a huge thanks to NZXT for sponsoring this video and for making Meg's new PC way better than it would have originally been. And of course, thank you to the channel members and the super gifters for their above and beyond support. As always, be safe out there, and I will see you all down in the comments as well as the next stream and or video. Bye.